And now, please welcome back to the stage NASCIO President Stephanie Dedman.
Hello. We'll go ahead and get started. If you'll grab your seats. Today's question at the voting kiosk is to predict what the primary role of the state CIO will be in the next 5 years plus. Strategist, conductor, ethicist, or evangelist. And so far today, strategist is winning. So, this question and the upcoming Fireside chat relate to a theme explored in this year's state CIO survey. What will be the role of the CIO organization in the future, and what is leading this change? To provide insight on what the future may hold, please welcome Dennis Goulet, CIO and Commissioner for New Hampshire, Laura Clark, CIO in Michigan, and Greg Hoffman, Deputy CIO for North Dakota. Please welcome them.
Well, thank you, Stephanie. Good morning, NASCIO.
Good morning.
It's great to be here with you. I feel like, when I'm here, I've said that many times, but I feel like I'm with my family and feel comfortable in being with you, and it's great to be with you all. So thanks for attending, and thanks for being our friends and partners in crime and what we do. As I was reflecting on this topic, I was thinking about, I started my job in April of 2015 as a state CIO in New Hampshire, and I was thinking about how much different my job is today than it was when I started. And part of that was my own desire to change the role and what I was doing inside the state, but also the world changed around me and caused me to have to adapt. So I think that it's going to be fun exploring with Laura and Greg today, taking that crystal ball and looking at what we're going to be doing and how fast the pace may change on us as we're doing it. So, ready to jump into it?
Sure are.
Yep. Let's go. All right, great. So we're going to start out with some data from the CIO survey, and so you can bring that up on the screen. So you can see here that there's some pretty strong correlation with certain areas in the questions that came up. And, I'd like to hear your reflections on that. Maybe we'll start with you, Greg. What do you think about this? Does this match what you were thinking, and are any differences in your state?
Yeah, no, Dennis, very much matches what we're seeing within North Dakota and also as we talk with our peers. The role of a CIO and the IT organization within state government has transformed a lot over the years. You mentioned 2015 when you started. I've been with my state for over 18 years, and when I started, everything was about infrastructure and providing that, and that has changed so dramatically that your infrastructure needs, your computer, your hardware, networks is just supposed to work. It just has to be there and be there in the background, and they want us to be that strategic partner now to help our customers with their plans for moving forward.
Great. I remember we were talking about that, 18 years. Mm-hmm. Wow. Thank you for that long service.
You're welcome.
Laura, what are your thoughts on this data?
Yeah, so I've been with the state of Michigan also for a very long time, about over 20 years now. And I think it's interesting because it does align with a lot of what we're focusing on and working. We also talk as states how we all have different models, whether we're centralized, partially centralized, or federated. And I think all of these really, it doesn't matter what model you have, they're all important. I also think it's because we played different roles throughout our careers. It's a different perspective when you're in the CIO seat than from where you sit either as a deputy CIO or as a frontline worker, an analyst, whatever it is. And so it's interesting to see that progression, I think both from where the CIO position has been, as well as seeing it from different vantage points.
Well, this resonates really quickly. It looks kind of like exactly how I voted on the data. The one thing maybe I would have said was higher maybe was the selective outsourcing, because I think we're doing a lot of when we're looking for solutions now, we're really looking for, kind of soup to nuts versus, just acquiring an application or a service. So the next slide will show a little bit more data. So I'll start with you, Laura, on this one and see would you rank it this way, or are there differences in your state?
No, we definitely rank it this way. The thing that I think is interesting is in Michigan, we're really trying to combine 1 and 2 and to think about cybersecurity from a citizen experience or a customer experience standpoint. So we're really pushing forward some of that mindset. I think that 3, 4, and 5 also help support both 1 and 2. I think I could maybe debate whether 1 and 2 are switched on cybersecurity, being that I am a former CISO, and I think everything kind of predicates around cybersecurity. But definitely those, when I talk about my priorities, those are the top priorities in the state of Michigan.
Well, it's funny because I remember answering that, and I say, well, every year cyber's number 1, so if I don't make it number 1, but I really love the fact that you're kind of weaving it into your what you're doing versus making an afterthought, because we all know that's a much better practice. So Greg, what are your thoughts? Does this resonate with you?
Yeah, I agree with Laura in that the 3 or 4 or 5 on here are also interwoven. As we try to meet the citizens where they are, that's about the digital citizen experience. We need to be mobile. We need to be every place that they are, from wherever they want to transact services with the government, and that's what we're trying to get to. However, it's number 3 that isn't there yet, and so 3 and 1 are very interwoven, and that is you try to modernize your legacy apps and get them to that digital user experience. Those 2 are very interrelated. I chuckle at the comments on cybersecurity as well, in that, well, if we don't rank at number 1, it's like we don't feel like we should be secure. That's not necessarily the case. I mean, we need to interweave the cybersecurity portion into all of that, and that actually plays into the modernization of some of those applications too. Data governance and identity management are hand in hand in that. You can't have a solid digital experience if you don't have good identity management underneath that.
Well,
And we're actually seeing a direct correlation when we focus on more human-centered design approaches in our cybersecurity field, in reducing some friction points and being able to help us or help our end users be able to do what they need from a cyber standpoint. So when we focus on the digital experience, we actually see that it helps us with our security posture.
Excellent. In New Hampshire, we were discussing recently the relationship between identity and access management and the legacy modernization, because we see that if you're trying to have that seamless or frictionless experience, you're trying to drop in without a second authentication, and certainly with your legacy apps it's a lot harder to do than with the modern apps that can support the protocols and everything. So it's definitely there's a relationship there. So one of the cool things about the NASCIO CIO survey is you answer questions that are fixed and firm, but also there's options to comment, and so we culled out some really interesting quotes that I'd love to dive into a bit on what people were thinking as it relates to this topic of the future of the CIO leadership. So let's dive into that first quote, and I will ask you, Laura, to comment on this.
Sure. So first of all, I think it's awesome that we get to use quotes from our peers, because it just shows how smart our peers are, and we get to,
For sure.
to talk about this. So for us, I think, all of us, whether you're in a centralized model or a federated model, we have started talking about what is that digital government experience, what are our citizens or residents trying to do in taking that focus, and really stop talking about the technology and the nuts and bolts and the technology stack. That's what maybe I care about or my team cares about, but really our business partners within our agencies and those trying to get services from government, they just want to go in and do business. And so I do think being able to take those 5 priority areas and figuring out how to weave those together, and then talk to our business partners about what is it that they're actually trying to accomplish, and then aligning our technologies behind that and taking away kind of more of that technical speak, because we often lose kind of the focus, their focus,
Exactly.
or their understanding. So if we can really show that we're trying to help them accomplish their business, it brings us into that visionary role.
Excellent, excellent. I totally agree. Your thoughts, Greg?
Sure. For North Dakota, we really look at that visionary role for cross-departmental concept in this quote. And as Laura was saying, every department within our state, if we've got roughly 60 state agencies that we help service, their goal is to all provide their services in that digital manner, and the services received, whether you're doing that through Department of Transportation or your corrections or your game and fish, whatever that is, they all want that in the same manner. So their underlying need is very much the same, and we want to approach with how we go about doing that as opposed to approaching it from a specific technology to solve that. We want to understand how can we solve their needs best and solve a problem, and then we'll fit a technology to enable that.
That's great. I think you both hit on a really important point there, is that we're starting, it almost goes back to the keynote speaker's message to us, which is we're starting with people, right? And we're smiling and we're looking people in the eye and we're helping them lead their organizations from a business perspective, and then the technology follows. So that's, I totally feel what you're saying. Let's take a look at the next quote, and we'll start with you, Greg. And
Sure. We're waiting for the next one. There it comes. So much of what a nice segue right into this, Dennis, is that collaborative effort with the agencies. We're finding ourselves working on the relationship side of this much more than we have ever done in the past. And that is the necessary part of understanding our agencies and what services they're providing. We do a lot of what we call shadowing and ride-alongs. We go out with the agencies and understand what a park ranger sees during the day, what a highway patrol officer sees during the day, what a claims recipient from job service, workforce safety, any of that, what they do on a daily basis, so we can help understand their actual problems and get that more collaborative, personal touch to understanding their needs, and then we try to solutionize from there.
excellent.
Yeah, I love that. We also are doing what I refer to as field trips,
Yep.
right? Going back to our elementary school days. But really, I want to focus on that second part of the quote, which is the realization aspect of it, right? So why are we trying to work collaboratively? What are the outcomes that we're trying to do? And we're really looking to shift the way that we're measuring things from outputs. We delivered a technology or we delivered a service. And really look at how is that service being used? Is it meeting and accomplishing our goals? And sometimes that's really hard because it's a multi-year approach. So when you first roll something out, sometimes a new system is not necessarily as efficient as maybe the old system was. So giving yourself some time to ensure that both the user and the customer in the agency understands what it means and how it is, give it a little time for adoption, and then do a long-term 2 to 3 years benefits realization on that. And then once you have the information there, how do you learn from it? What do you take back to apply to your processes that you have in place? Did you do good estimating? Did you understand what the business needed, and how do we adjust for the next project?
And I think that's a great way of explaining it. And as Greg said, the relationship part of that really helps, right? Because I find that the best run projects have everybody, liking each other and supporting each other throughout, and the worst we don't. So it's really important, I think. Well, we've got some more great quotes, so let's hop to the next one, and what do you think of this one, Laura?
So my team actually says CIO stands for Chief Internal Optimizer. So I really
Does that
relate
say
to this
something
one.
about you? Or?
It does. I mean, we all are working with limited resources, whether it's dollars, whether it's people resources, whatever it is. And so we really need to focus on that automation in driving out the efficiencies. We have a lot of internal processes with handoff points between different teams. So how do we work to really streamline some of those approaches through automation, RPA, things like that, to really help build that expertise and the efficiency. It also helps offset some of the gap that we see with workforce, whether it's we don't have enough people. We have legislation, right, that appropriates how many people we can hire and how much money we have to hire those individuals. So whether it's we don't have enough actual individuals or we don't have the knowledge base. So like I said, this one really resonated with me.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think the automation and efficiency part of this, we're always challenged with finding the best use of our resources, and that requires some of that. And as we meet with our businesses and we solutionize with them, they're not in that IT space. They know the high-level picture of what they want to accomplish, and when they talk with us, it's kind of our role then to find those areas to interject efficiencies, interject some of those automation opportunities. And with the lack of qualified workforce, I think there's opportunities to work around that, but much like Laura stated with Michigan, most states are in that predicament where you have a set number of staff that you're allowed to bring on due to appropriations. And beyond that, as your needs increase, as demand increases, how do you meet that demand? Because there isn't always the opportunity to just wait and set something aside for another cycle to get that workforce.
Yeah, you both brought up the automation, and I think there's a lot of fear out there about that displacing jobs. But what I'm actually seeing, and I think you guys are seeing the same thing, is both inside IT as well as in the agency staffs, is that the inability to hire is putting opportunities there that are definitely not going to displace, because you always want somebody at the end of a AI or an automated process. You want that human at the end of it to make sure that we actually know what happened and why it happened. So.
Well, and I think when we go back to those 5 priorities and we talk about the legacy modernization, that also has a big impact on this workforce, because a lot of the legacy systems are kind of hairpinned around a couple of key resources that are ready to retire or that we're worried that we're going to lose their knowledge base. So I think automation helps us figure out how to have a little bit of continuity with our agency partners as well.
Excellent. So I think we've got another quote behind these. We're getting close to the end here on time, but we can sneak at least one more in there. All right, we're going to jump to you, Greg. What are your thoughts on this one?
So this conference's buzzword here, generative AI. Yes, I think that is the next wave of technology hitting us. Maybe it's been likened to changes from when the cell phone came, when the network or the internet and those types of things. I mean, it's poised to be that next huge turning point from a technology perspective, and it will change how people work today. It'll change not only how we do our jobs and how our agencies delve out services, but it's going to change how citizens and consumers of those services consume them as well, right? So it's not always going to be a paper check that comes out to an individual for benefit payments or all of that. It will change in all aspects, like the quote says.
I agree. I think that generative AI and the way that the new AI models are working and running, it's interesting because a lot of the technology, it's either impacting usually the IT and how we're doing it, or it may impact our business. This is one that's impacting all of us, right? So how we really lean forward or lean into this, I think, is critical. Also helping our partners understand both the positive and some of the risk with it. I can't not talk about the risk and talk about the cyber and things like that. But the cyber criminals are going to use generative AI just like they use all other technologies. The important part is how are we applying those types of resources internally? What are we doing to protect and continuing to build out the cybersecurity platform and the education for our users to help mitigate some of the risks that we're seeing.
I agree. And also, I think the integrity of our services, right? We want to make sure we know that, although we're using technology to help us do better faster, at the end of that, there's always, the integrity of a human making that final decision on whether it's a license that we're going to issue or something like that. So I think that's really important.
Yeah, I agree, Dennis. The education around generative AI and the future of that is so huge in this space.
Yeah, it's coming. We just have to manage it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Correct.
Well, we're coming up on the end, so I'm going to ask one more question of each of you. And, looking forward, over the next few years, what's the one or two single biggest changes you think are going to come about in your job, in your state? So, Laura, let's start with you on that.
Yeah, I think we'll continue to trend towards the strategists, but I think that the CIOs, we will become more of a catalytic voice and a push with our agency partners to really think about how we do transformation in government, not just legacy modernization and those kinds of things. So being able to understand and being able to be that bold voice to lean forward. We also, I like to say we are becoming the translation service. So we continually have to translate between our IT folks and our business folks. We continually have to translate between legislative and executive branch, between private sector and public sector, and all those things. So really honing in on your translation skills, I think, will be important.
It's a super point. I spend so much time thinking about how am I going to say this so I don't blow away my audience and lose them in the first 10 seconds. Yep. What are you thinking, Greg?
So I think we're going to evolve in much the same way. So as we build those relationships, we're that translator. We're the subject matter expert, so to speak, from the IT perspective. And when business doesn't understand the IT speak, we need to be able to translate that to them. We need to be able to translate that to the legislators who need to appropriate funding in a lot of these projects. So we need to be able to be there shoulder to shoulder with our agencies as they go in and have the needs and have the asks going forward of what they want to do, the projects they want to put on the table. We'll have to help justify why they want to do those. And then before they get up and speak to them, we need to be part of the collaboration effort with them and making sure that they're putting a sound solution together and not just creating, back to those 5 points, you're not just creating a newer legacy app than what you just had, right? To modernize something to within 10 years of today isn't really modernizing it. So
Exactly. Well, Laura, you mentioned at the beginning of our session here that something about smart people, and I'm pretty humbled to be on stage with such smart people today. Thank you, Greg and Laura, for helping out on this. Let's give them a big hand for their. So a little bit of housekeeping to close this out. Next on the agenda are workshops. There are 3 options which focus on the governance of either whole of state initiatives, data management, or generative AI. And I remember back in the early cyber days, cyber would get a lot of attention. I'm wondering if generative AI is going to be the place where we get attention today. So check the app for which topic is in which room. There's signage to help you find your way, but please be mindful that 2 rooms are upstairs from here. We'll meet back in this room for a networking lunch at 11:45. After lunch, our state CIO panels. Check the app for state groupings and room assignments. The day will conclude with a general session back here where Stephanie will present the work of this year's presidential initiative on improving the digital experience for citizens. Enjoy the rest of your morning, everybody.